boy.
Hey, boys. You boys look kind of funny.
You boys ain't from around here,
You
are
ain't
you?
from around here.
Shut up and sit down.
Oh yeah, it's gonna get real cold up in here right now. Check this out.
Nice day to get on our bicycles, take a ride down to the park, pedaling up and down the hills, birds sing and dogs they bark.
It is a stretch, but so far what you are hearing is the Dialed podcast with Matt Legrand, Evan Price, Lance Hepler, and Jake Von During. Have you heard that perseverance is the hard work you do after you get tired of doing the hard work you already did?
Clouds flow by, and when we come back down, we roll so fast.
Okay, what the
Grass, wondering how many hours have passed.
What the bloody hell was that?
Hi, and welcome back to the Dial Podcast. I'm Jake Von During. Today I'm here with Lance Hepler.
It's romance right here in the studio.
Hey, Lance.
Hi, Lance.
Lance, you're wearing pants.
Yeah, I'm fully clothed
Sort
at
of.
the moment.
A moment, yeah.
A little bit less hair, but yeah.
To his right, Evan Price.
I would ask what you are drinking, but I am 2.5 cups of coffee into my day
Whoa.
right now.
Whoa.
Jake needs to stop feeding me coffee.
LaCroix.
LaCroix.
I'm sipping on some coffee too, but I'm not near as
Not even
amped up
close.
as
Not
Mr.
even
Evan
close.
Price.
You know what it was too? I had a noon tablet with the caffeine stuff while I
Oh
was
my
on
gosh.
a trainer. So
Oh,
actually,
geez.
it's probably 3.5
a
cups
lot.
of coffee.
Yeah.
Cool.
I feel like if you just yell out LaCroix, it's kind of almost like yelling out parkour.
Yeah. Maybe that should just be my intro. So if I ask what you're drinking, just yell out LaCroix.
LaCroix. I don't know.
Good stuff. And that's the last one for the show. Backpedal.
Wait, we didn't introduce Matt LaCroix.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
Hold on.
Wait.
Let me take a little hit of this coffee
Here,
here.
hit the coffee. What's up, ladies and gentlemen of the
And to
internet?
Evan's right is Matt Legrand.
You guys are looking fantastic today.
Fantastic.
I'm seeing you through the radio waves, and oh my gosh, you look good.
Those waves are looking really good.
They're looking good.
Excellent. Let's try this again. Jump into the backpedal. Lance, you want to backpedal for us?
Yes, I do want to backpedal.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Race number 1, go.
So, I raced 3 times this week.
3 times.
I raced Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Saturday morning. Tuesday night at the Trophy Cup in the men's 50-plus category. I got a pretty decent start and was going pretty well. I worked my way through the field, and I got up to the front of the field and was running over some barriers. And after I was remounting my bike, my shorts caught on the back of my seat.
Of your seat? Oh, okay.
I was trying to pull my leg over,
Yeah.
and they caught, and I just forced it,
Okay.
and jumped on the bike and kept going. Did the whole race. A guy from my field caught me. I let him pass me. I sat on his wheel and out sprinted him for the win. So I won the race, right? So
Nice. Congrats.
yeah. So I after the race, everybody kind of gathers to hey,
Yep.
chat and whatnot. And I just rolled up and stopped and was talking to the guys, and one of them rolled up and was like, "Lance, you are hanging out of your shorts." So I had ripped a dinner plate size of Lycra out of my bib shorts. And it was
Describe the exact location, please.
it was just right of center.
Yeah.
So
center front, correct?
So
Center front.
center front. So you could tell that I hadn't manscaped, but you couldn't really quite tell.
Yeah.
I was covered, but barely. So it was a very European sort of cover. What's it, a generous, generous Mediterranean cover?
Well,
We'll say.
It was enough that he said something. I looked down and was like, "Oh my gosh!" I was like totally embarrassed because there was too much showing.
Yeah.
I had to rush over to the van and put some shorts on because I was like
hanging out.
I was hanging out.
Oh my gosh.
The funny thing was, I did not realize it at all. I raced 3 laps like that.
That's incredible.
And did not. The temperature was like right at like 72 degrees, so it wasn't like
nice.
it
Yeah.
wasn't brisk or cold or
Yeah, to where you could
hot.
notice.
It was just like I ripped my shorts off.
Probably could start rating.
Where was
racing
the
a Speedo,
heckling?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I got a lot of heckles afterwards.
Everybody was probably too far into the red to really realize.
Did they like change gears and go into catcalling instead, or what?
Yeah.
It's like, I think there was shock, actually.
Well, yeah, because it was in the
like,
front. So if you're at the front of the race, nobody's going to see that till the very end of the
That's
race.
correct. So pretty stinking hilarious.
So literally, Lance No Pants living very up to his name there.
Lance No Pants that race.
Right. And there's pictures.
And there are photos.
Yeah.
Because I had a teammate out who was taking photos, and
They're like enhance.
he didn't realize either. He was taking
he was
photos
taking
and
photos.
didn't notice either, because he's watching the action and people are moving, quickly, and it just...
The photos are, I would say, PG-13 to maybe one step past.
NC-17, I think it's
NC-17, I don't really know. But yeah,
further up.
There's nothing showing, barely.
I don't know. You can definitely tell like where you stop shaving.
Yeah,
so
that is a true good point.
It's a good photo.
Next race, let's move on.
Okay. It's a good photo, one of your finest, I think.
Thank you.
Matt really enjoyed it.
I mean, I've got it hanging on my wall.
It's going to be part of your next YouTube video.
Yep.
So the very next night, blind date at the dairy, I showed up and got grief from everybody.
Of course you did.
Everybody's like, "Oh, Lance, you gonna keep your pants on this time?" I said, "I don't know. The night is young."
Were you wearing the same bib shorts?
I know. Those are ruined.
Those are done?
Go in the trash.
They're not going to be worn
They
again.
were
Well, why
not
not?
fixable.
Were they somewhat new?
Just wear a Speedo.
They're expensive.
Yeah, I
man.
had to come buy new stuff.
$100.
I had to come buy new stuff from Jake. Luckily, he had one or two things that still fit me, so it was kind of hilarious. Anyway, so the next night, 50-plus race. In this race, I got a slower start and was like 7th or 8th out of like 20 in the first lap or two, and by the third lap, I had caught the guy in second and just was drilling it to try to catch the guy in first, and I never saw the guy in first.
Oh wow!
I was
gone.
Just gone. I get to the end of the race. Turns out he had flatted on lap 3 and pulled off, and I didn't even know he had pulled off. So I ended up winning that race too.
Good. That's awesome.
2 for 2.
2 for 2.
So
chasing ghosts.
I
like it.
was chasing ghosts that night. And we were mixed up with other fields, so again, and it was dark because it's nighttime. Those races are at night, so it's a little bit crazier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when you're really chasing ghosts. You don't know who's where.
No. So weekend comes around. Again, I'm feeling good because I won
races,
the other 2 races, but it's only half the field at those races. And this time there was like 35 people in the men's 50-plus race, and I was able to hang in for 4th this week.
That's good.
This was Corn Cross, correct?
This is Corn Cross.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Again, that's a super strong field, that 50-plus field. And people think, oh, guys are 50 years old.
Corn Cross gets pretty good show out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that field puts up some of the fastest lap times. I mean, I think the only field that's really giving out faster lap times on average is the Pro 1-2, right?
Yeah, that's true. So I was really happy to get, because I've gotten 9th and 10th the last 2 weekends, and this time I just missed the podium.
Solid. Right.
I will say that one of the fastest guys in our field did not race with us. He raced in the Pro 1-2 field.
I saw that. Yeah.
And took 8th.
Still,
wow, good for him.
So still, even if you said 5th, you would still be pumped about 5th.
Yes, I would
right?
still be pumped about 5th.
That's impressive. You're fit, man.
I'm trying to keep up on it.
Fitness is coming around.
I'm wondering if 3 races a week is too much.
Probably.
That'll taper down here.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
How many weeks is Trophy Cup? It's 5 weeks, and so 2 are done.
Yeah, there's 2 are done. Yeah,
So you got 3
there's
left.
3 more weeks of that.
Gotcha. Evan, you want to backpedal for us?
Yeah, I'll do a quick one here. The most important thing of this last week, I did barely any training, but I got onto Zwift, and I figured it out. I figured out how to do the
It out by
Zwift.
yourself?
I wouldn't say entirely by myself.
You figured it out, or Cassie figured it out?
Cassie, Tonk, and Alan Plank gave me a lot of
Evan and a small army.
But at the end of the day, I was the one having to click the buttons. Okay, I had to click
Good
the buttons.
job, Evan. Good job, buddy.
I know how to like use the erg now, so I've set up my own workouts that I'm going to use, and it was coming away from. I know I was not here to discuss Santa Cruz. I was.
You should probably give us a little bit of.
I'll do.
We all took guesses.
I know.
We all took guesses, but we didn't say what happened. Yeah.
I'll do a short one. The reason I didn't call in last week, I'll be completely transparent here. I was having a very, very nice day in Santa Cruz with Cassie. We really took a day, and she showed me a lot of the stuff around Santa Cruz that she did when she lived there when she was younger, what her high school weekends looked like. That city's incredible.
Oh, cool.
I love Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
I could have been a beach kid. I would have been a great beach kid, except for my pale skin. That would have been the only problem.
We have 2 teammates from Santa Cruz.
Who's from Santa Cruz?
John Hatfield grew up there.
Oh, John, yeah.
And so did Scott
Troutman?
Yep.
God.
Grew up there. Yeah.
You know, I vote we do a Santa Cruz team training camp at some time. That'd be awesome.
Maybe just a bike trip, because I don't know about training camp there. In
camp
February probably isn't ideal.
You got a pretty good location for training camp. February there's pretty chilly. Yeah. But anyway, so I went into this Santa Cruz race, which was now a weekend ago. Jeez, that was only a week ago. In the best shape of my life, bar none. Like, not even really any competition. This was the fittest I had ever felt and been. It was the end of a race block, so it was at the end of 6 weeks with 3 races, 373s. And I go into the race. The swim is an ocean swim. It was it was decently choppy water, not very choppy water, but it made for a fun start. You had to dive in over the waves. We were all wetsuit because it's pretty chilly water. And I stuck with the field to the first turn buoy. We were actually all together basically until we hit 800 meters into the race. And some guys who had already kind of gone off the front, the main field really started to split up, and guys really started to hammer towards around the pier. I latched on with a small group at the back, and we brought it in and came out of the water basically 30 seconds off that group. And we were only, I think we were like a minute and a half off what was the bigger group. Basically, it was a bigger group of 8 or 9 guys. Mm-hmm. And then there was a group off in front of them, and then the lead group. So really, with my swim not being where it needs to be this year, that was one of my better swims this year. We had a long run up to transition where I made up some time, got through transition, got on the bike, and we were working with a back group. Through the first hour, I was putting out great, power, great work. We were starting to actually make up a little bit of time on the guys in front of us. And I was definitely going quicker than I had the previous year with a strong headwind going out to the turnaround. And as you can't control sometimes, I ran over a shard of glass, and my rear tire decided it wasn't going to hold air. So I also found out at that time that my rear disc brake had been rubbing pretty hard that entire first hour when I had gone to change it. So in my head, I knew I went into that race with the best bike fitness I've ever had in my life. And I didn't do a lot of group riding, but I had been doing a lot of really specific training towards the end of the summer. So it was really disappointing knowing how good my legs felt that first hour, knowing that I really hadn't spent any of my matches yet and was really hanging with a group that I know has pretty close to, we were putting out right under 300 watts for that first hour. And I think we were going to even push that a little bit more. So sitting on the side of the road, pretty mad at myself for not packing flat kits.
Oh, no. Wait.
No, I don't race with a flat in 73s. I do not race with a flat kit.
You just did not have a flat kit.
I never raced with one.
So the plan would have been, if I flatted,
wait for the mechanic or day's done.
That's it.
Day's done.
Okay. What do you keep in the little box, the little fairing box
Nothing.
behind the seat? Nothing, just empty.
Empty.
That makes sense.
Empty. So whose fault is this at the end of the day? It's mine. In my defense, the tire was shredded. The sidewall was completely sliced open.
A tube in CO2 would have served you just.
Well, I just would have flatted later. I mean, that's basically what would have happened.
You wouldn't have been able to repair because the tube would have come out.
Yeah.
What if you have like a little
sidewall? Oh,
sidewall.
Boot. If you had a boot,
in there,
a boot would have helped.
Worked.
Yeah. At the end of the day, though, I mean, really, even 60 seconds in a race like that, with how important pack dynamics were, it was still going to be really hard for me to make up. If I did a 60-second switch, I mean, it still would have been tough.
It'd have been 3 minutes at least.
I know. Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, yes, my end time would have been much faster, but I wouldn't have been where I felt like my fitness was that day.
Yeah.
So I sit on the side of the road. I waited. It was just under 30 minutes for the mechanic. The guy was super nice. It was not his fault that it took him that long to get out there. They had like a moto bike have a mechanical too, one of the ref moto bikes. It was just, and it's my fault. Like, if I'm sitting on the side of the road with a flat, the only person pointing the finger at is me. Like, I didn't have a repair. So The guy showed up. I was pretty mad at myself, and he said, "Hey, you want me to change out for you?" And I was like, "Nah, dude. Like tire slashed. I'm done." And he kind of looked at me, and he knows a good friend of mine, Nick Cottle, who's an Ironman mechanic. So I think he actually knew who I was. And he kind of looked at me and goes, "Nah, you're finishing this race." Yeah. And I think it was like
that's cool.
He kind of gave me that look for a second. He was like, "No, he's like, you're not injured. You're fine." He's like, and I mean, I'm sure in my head, looking back, I should have thought to myself and be like, there are people who race Ironmans without legs. Like, I have no excuse to not continue this race. So he helped me fix it. He got my spirits back up. I was smiling by the time I got back on the bike. He gave me a shove too. He was like, "Here, I'll give you a push." I was like, "Oh, good. That'll help." So, yeah. But got back on the bike, and here's the truly heartening thing and disheartening thing for me is I hammered the rest of that bike. And even with a stiff headwind, definitely a slower day compared to the previous year, my moving time was, I think, 2 minutes faster than my bike split from the previous year, it being a much slower day. So I swam faster than I did the year before. I biked faster, having a large section of that, standing still and legs stiffening up, and threw my nutrition off. Yeah. Came off the bike and legs felt incredible, which once again was just disheartening because time-wise it was not looking like it should. Ran the first 5K in like 17:55, I think. Felt smooth. Mm-hmm. And going through mile 6, feeling great. And then all of a sudden, inconsistencies in nutrition and me the previous 2 days trying a new supplement for hydration. My stomach was feeling rough.
I think we've talked about that a few times on this, Evan. Come on, man. We don't change stuff up the day before or the couple of days before.
I know. So I'm not going to say the supplement that I was using or anything like that. Like, put it this way, from now on, I'm only using Noon because that's what my stomach has been using for now almost 11 years. There it was disappointing because let me put it this way. There were fast runners around me that I had to go to a walk, go off into the woods, take care of business real quick. And by real quick, it wasn't that quick, and come back onto the run. And I caught and passed against some of those runners who I know are strong runners, everyman Jack guys.
Yeah.
Then I had to go off into the woods again, take care of business again.
That's what happens when you're running with a lighter load.
I know, right? Yeah, I was flying. Come back on, keep on running, and eventually caught all the guys who kept on passing me, and then even tried to pace one of them to the finish. But it's really feels rough getting to the finish, and I didn't feel tired. I didn't feel tired at all.
Wow.
I came across that finish line, probably could have ran another like 6 miles.
There's good takeaways from this. Yeah. I mean, that had all the little things not happened, that you've been doing things right.
Yeah.
That your training is working, and that you can build upon that for next year.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
So
I think it
got to reload and do it again next year.
Yeah.
And
7 days later, the one take back, and then I'll be done with my long back pedal here is I now have a little bit more of a fire and competitive feel to. I'm a little bit angry at how that ended there, which I think is good.
It did.
Yeah.
Nice cliffhanger for the year.
I'd rather have ended the season that way than had a semi okay good race to end the year. This one kind of stoked the fires a little bit more. So
at least your kit didn't rip off your body.
I'll tell you what, at least I was covered the entire time. Now, granted, I'll tell you what, there were moments where I was not covered during that race, but I was in the woods. So I hope that Ironman's not going to randomly hear this and come after me and disqualify me for using the restroom on the course. They didn't have enough port. They had one portalet. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah. No.
But yeah. So this is me admitting on our podcast that I
broke the rules.
I do what bears.
And you make your zipper too low.
I do what bears do in the woods.
Okay.
Matt, did you make any trips to the woods or tear off any kits?
I was able to keep my pants on.
Clothes on.
And,
that is unfortunate.
Kept your bowel movements to yourself.
For all of my exercise activities this week, which there were not very many, I swam quite a bit and ran a good bit, and the only thing that's really of note is that my wife did a marathon yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Which was really cool. So actually, we had a neighbor come over and watch the kids, and I went with her in the morning and did the supportive stuff like, water and stuff, and helped her with the starting line, and, got to run with her a whole bunch. Actually ran 11 miles. I ran 11 miles yesterday, which is a lot for me.
Wow.
It was a ton. My Achilles is hurting a lot today, but my shoulder's okay. I swam today. Things are going well. But it was a long day yesterday, so we did the marathon. I did and it was just raining the whole time.
Right. We've had great weather, and it just turned yesterday.
It was just downpour. So we were completely drenched the whole, that whole period of time or whatever. She ended up getting 3rd overall.
Yep.
So, which means you got to be at the award ceremony, which means you're in the rain for even longer. She wanted to go 3:30, and she went 3:22, which is
on a not good
on a
speed
tough
day.
Yeah.
On not a speedy day. Yeah.
And she just had a great race, and man, she fought hard because to get 3rd place, she had to pass a girl at mile 24.5, basically, right towards the end of the race. So she did really, really well. Very proud of her. And then yesterday we were like going to sit around and have beers, just kind of like celebrate or whatever, because we had soccer. So we spent, more time outside in the rain watching soccer. Jake, you know how it is.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were like, finally, we're home. It was the evening time. We were like, let's sit down, have a beer, and watch the kids play in the cul-de-sac area. So we're sitting there or whatever. My youngest one, is running, wipes out on the concrete, splits his head open. So we're like,
oh boy.
It's like, I don't know, 7 o'clock at night at that point or something like that. We're like, all right, we got to go to the emergency room, get stitches.
Oh, no.
So we're just like, this day just went on forever. Went to the hospital, got him stitched up, got home, 10:30 or whatever it was, and was just like done. But yeah.
Here's a question. Why didn't she just stitch him up?
Because he needed to be sedated.
Oh,
and
how many stitches?
I don't know. There's like
more than 10.
No, okay. No. I mean, it was probably like 8.
Okay.
I actually don't know. I'm a bad parent.
I'm gonna tell Kristen you know that.
Yeah. So like some internal and some external, and so I'm not sure the total number, but I'm gonna guess 8 total. But yeah,
so maybe like a Harry Potter scar for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Right down.
Yeah.
Be pretty cool.
Yeah, could be cool. So yeah, he's got that going for him, and then so things are good. Things are good. Life is good. Cool. Families on the mend.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, how about you?
I rode on the trainer 6 times. That's it.
Wow.
All right, let's move into errors and omissions. We've got an errors and omissions segment brought to us by our friend Elijah Ingstrom, who's on our juniors team.
Elijah. I blew it last week.
Hey, Elijah, good eye. Yeah. Good eye, kid. Good eye.
So we were talking about Pogacar. Is that how you say his name?
Yes, Pogacar.
Okay.
Or Pogacar or Pogacar.
I've said it different every single time I say it.
So talking to the wrong guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about how he was from Slovenia, and we talked about whether or not Mr. Peter Sagan was from Slovenia as well. We didn't talk about whether or not. We just said he was. So Elijah wanted to point out to us that he's actually from Slovakia.
He's from Slovakia. Those countries aren't even touching each other.
No, they're not. You would think they are, but they're not.
Slovenia is between Italy and Croatia down on the Mediterranean, and Slovakia is up between Austria and Czechoslovakia.
Now, Slovakia used to be part of Yugoslavia, correct? I don't know.
Yes. Where are these in relation to Alabama? Because that's the only reference that I need to.
The other side.
Okay, got it.
I know like 4 countries. So
okay.
Thanks, Elijah.
Alabama's one.
Alabama, and Texas is the other one.
Okay, good.
All right, the Leadout news. Who wants to talk about cyclocross? There's some cyclocross racing.
Lance, you should talk about cyclocross.
Talked about it a little bit.
The races.
There was some races. The big race on the weekend. There was a UCI race in Iowa City, Iowa.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The first UCI race of the year.
Wow. The World Cup, right?
The World Cup.
Yep.
And lots of Europeans came over to do the race. And our own Clara Hunsinger from Portland, Oregon, took 3rd place in the women's UCI race.
Oh my gosh!
She took 3rd.
Awesome. Showing those Europeans. Whoa.
She did not have a front row call up.
Oh wow!
She caught the leaders. She actually led the race for a little while, but she ended up 3rd. So fantastic result for an American.
Does she ever race around here?
2 weeks ago,
was at David Douglas.
She was at David Douglas.
She raced the guys' race, right?
She raced the guys' race. Yeah, and she took
cool.
8th in the guys' race.
That's what she should do, man.
And that was probably just a training race for her.
Yeah. Yes. Correct.
That's cool.
So.
Now, I saw Robert Cummings out there. And
I don't know if
they were riding all over the place. Did they not race?
I don't know if he raced. But Danny Weichel, he did race. He went out as well.
Wait,
really?
Robert raced corncross. I think I saw that on his Instagram.
No,
I thought
he did
was
not.
Was he there watching?
No, he was in Iowa City.
Oh, that's where his videos were from. My bad. I was assuming they were Corn Cross.
No, he was in
Got it.
Iowa City, and I don't know if he raced or not, so I don't have those details.
Interesting.
But Danny Weichel did. He did a Masters Cat 1-2 45 to 49 race that he won.
He won?
He won.
Wow.
He did 3 races, and one he took third, and I don't know what happened in the second, and another he won. So yeah.
Good for him. Good job, Danny.
So Portland represented in UCI race out there. Locally, at Corn Cross, the P1-2 race was won by Jacob Rathie. Yep, Jacob Rathie. The old guys beat all the youngsters this week. So yeah, so
cool.
That's it.
Hey, did you guys hear that a ski jumper won the Vuelta?
What? A ski jumper?
Ski jumper? It's impossible.
Evan, you want to tell us about the Vuelta real quick? Just give us a little quick and dirty on that one.
Oh, the race in Spain was very exciting. I mean, if anybody really wants to see, like, there were a couple stages there that were just so exciting. And if you want to see a young American that's going to be really coming up on the scene here soon, Jumbo Visma has a young American, Sepp Kuss. This kid is unbelievable. Won a stage in the Vuelta and was really a huge part of Roglic's success.
Yep.
Now, outside the fact that Roglic is incredible, I mean, a guy that could be isolated and still win a race without his team. His team was great around him until stage, I believe it was 20. It was stage 20.
They had,
This is the drama from the race. So we all know, Roglic won. Valverde was a couple minutes off his back in
2
second
minutes
place.
back.
And Pogacar from Slovenia was third, which
The
is awesome.
20-year-old was
very
third.
young,
Yeah.
very young. There's so many good young cyclists coming through. But really a big drama-filled story was, this is new news. Everybody hates Movistar now. Nobody likes Movistar. So there was a crash. I could be wrong on the stage. Elijah, I would like you to check this for me, please.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it was stage 20. There was a crash.
19.
Oh, it was 19.
Yeah.
Was it 19? Are we talking about the same thing when Movistar pushed? Yeah. So crash on stage 19 with not
60.
that 60K left, correct? 60K. I was about to say 100K. I couldn't remember.
I think it's 60K.
So when this crash happened, it took down a large portion of the field.
Right.
Most of Jumbo Visma is down.
Yeah.
Like almost the entire team is down.
Race leaders in there, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, Tony Martin was injured bad. Wow. So there's this split naturally, obviously after a crash like that, you got teammates also stopping to check on teammates.
Yep.
And far enough away from the finish that all cycling etiquette since the beginning of cycling racing time would say you wait for the race leader at this point. And you wait for not even the race leader, also people who are just in competition for the race.
Yeah, in contention, yep.
You wait. There's 60K left on, what is considered a moving stage day. You wait. So Movistar decides for a brief moment that, hey, this wouldn't be a bad time to make up that 2 minutes and 30 seconds that we're lacking to Roglic, and maybe nobody will notice, that we just decide to gap this in the crosswinds now.
So they went to the front and drilled it. Yeah.
And I mean, there's one, I don't know who the guy was, but there's one Jumbo Visma teammate sitting there. And you can see he's demonstrative on the camera pans over to him and he's shaking his head and his hands are up. He's like, what is going on are you serious right now? And Movistar is just drilling it on the front. It was almost 20K, I think. And then finally they turned it off and all kind of came to the front.
It was Valverde who actually called him off.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
You
Good
see
man.
Valverde in the rainbow stripes come to the front and do what the rainbow stripes jersey's supposed to do.
And he's part of Movistar.
Yeah,
He
He's on
is.
the
I mean,
team.
he was their leader. And
Why so soon, though?
yeah.
I wonder if it's
Here's what I think.
Okay, go ahead.
They weren't gaining the time that they needed actually to get the red jersey. Because if you look at it, the gap was still under 2 minutes at that time. And I bet at that point they're like, oh, no. Oh, what? We were pushing the pace? My bad. No, yeah. We'll back it off. Because they kept it. The announcers were interesting. They're like, they weren't pushing that whole time, but they weren't not pushing that whole time.
I think that their race director was telling them, go,
I think he was saying that.
And I think Valverde is like, screw this. I'm not gonna
be a part of this.
Well, what the race director...
that's just my what I hope is Valverde would be like, no.
I think most people like Valverde, so that's what we're hoping. Yeah.
What the race director said afterwards was their plan all along was to attack in that section because they knew there was going to be crosswinds there, and there was. And so that's why all of Movistar was at the front at the bottom of that descent. So their plan was to always attack, and when time came to attack, they attacked. That's what he said. But they rode right past all the guys who crashed. They had to know that they crashed.
This is like going back to when, this is years ago with cycling history, but when Contador attacked one of the Schleck, Andy, I believe. I think it was Andy, when Andy dropped his chain, and Contador had said after the race, he was like, well, I didn't know he dropped his chain, even though they show a video of it. He looks back and sees him drop his chain and then goes. As if in the radio era, there's nobody going to be like, hey, Alberto, just in case you wanted to know, Andy dropped his chain back there. You didn't just drop him by 2 minutes because you're so strong, Like, I mean, there's people all over the radios, teammates of other teams sitting there, probably talking to Movie Star, being like, hey, half the peloton just crashed back there. Don't know if you guys noticed, now that there's only 20 of us here.
Yeah.
Like, I know this may have been your game plan, but, times change, so.
Yeah.
The other crazy thing in the Vuelta was the stage the day or two before where they did, it was a 142-mile stage, and they averaged 31 and a half miles an hour.
What?
31 and a half miles an hour for 142 miles.
That's gruesome.
It was flat. There was cross tailwinds the whole day, but they finished like an hour faster than they anticipated. They did 142 miles in like just over 4 hours. What? 142 miles.
Add up.
I
done before noon.
Can't.
That's crazy.
Anyway.
Ouch.
Fun Vuelta. Everybody should watch the end of the stages. It's fun.
Any micro news, Matt? Anything in your backyard, neighborhood?
Micro news. No.
Okay. All right. Let's jump into our listener hot lap. We are going to give a listener a call who has kindly volunteered to be on the show and had some questions for us. So let's give Ryan Lee a call.
I'm scared for this one.
Here we go.
This is Ryan.
Ryan, it's Jake from the Dialed Podcast, and I'm here with Lance.
What's
Evan
up, Ryan?
And Matt. How's it going, man?
Hey, it's going great.
Good.
You guys.
Likewise. Hey, thank you for jumping on for our listener hot lap. Really appreciate that. Some of the guys have some questions for you. I'm going to let your little BFF over here, Mr. Lance Romance, get things started.
Ryan and I have known each other for 30 years. We've known each other a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
30 years.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sorry, Ryan.
long 30.
It's been a long 30 years.
Long 30.
We've seen each other through marriages and the end of marriages and beginnings of that stuff and lots of kids and all sorts of things. So actually, Brian's one of my favorite people in the world. We try to hang out a bunch together, so I'm super happy to have him on. So, Ryan, why don't you tell us just a brief history about yourself and where you live and where you're from and what kind of biking you do?
Okay. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. It is, I think, about 98 degrees right now.
Oof.
So it's still hot. Like Lance said, we were college roommates. That's how we met each other, and we both were walk-ons on the track team at BYU.
Yep.
And that's probably where I did or got into biking, probably for the most part. I mean, as a kid, I grew up riding BMX bikes around town, but at BYU, fell in love with mountain biking. My first road trips were with Lance. And today I have a road bike that collects dust, and I have a brand new mountain bike that I just crashed out on yesterday and tore my leg up and ripped my hydraulic line.
Oh,
no. Boy. Cool.
So, it was fun, though.
Where were you riding, Ryan?
Yeah.
I was riding at Blue Diamond on a trail called Landmine.
Oh,
and appropriately.
Yeah. You got blown up.
I got blown up. Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan and I, back in the 80s, we took a trip to Moab when we knew nothing about mountain biking, and we actually rode the Slick Rock Trail together.
Oh, cool.
Like in the late 80s. There's a picture of me wearing this white, terrible helmet, and I believe I don't have a shirt on. I wouldn't be surprised.
Was this prior to shocks on bikes? Was this all hardtail
it
back
was.
then? Was it all hardtail?
Yeah.
All rigid, yeah.
It was all rigid. So, It's pretty crazy.
Were you
That was
riding
when
in
I
jean
used to
shorts?
be able to keep up with Lance on a bike.
I imagine that everybody in the 80s rides like in jean shorts. Wait, is that true?
I can't remember what I was wearing.
Jean shorts.
I'm just going to say jean shorts.
Whatever shorts they were too short.
Especially without a
exactly what
shirt.
shorts they were.
That's right.
They were those Patagonia shorts, the nylon.
Yes.
Barely support.
So Lance has gotten a little bit faster in his retirement. Is that what you're referring to?
Oh yeah, hell of a lot faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to ask a question back in the track days here.
Oh
okay.
yeah. Okay. Good question.
So how athletic was Lance Ryan? Was he as athletic as I'm picturing, or would you have toasted him in certain events? Because he was a decathlete, correct?
The only two events I could beat Lance in were probably pole vault and high jump.
Pole vault and high jump.
Everything else, pretty much hands down, he could beat me in.
Okay.
And probably maybe even pole vault towards the end. But I would say it took him his whole college career to beat my high school career.
That is true.
Pole vault.
I was a 15.6 pole vaulter.
It's not bad.
In college.
Oh, whatever.
I'm sticking to that. And
is that true, Ryan? Hold on, Lance.
I vaulted over 15 feet. I know I vaulted over 15 feet, but it
15,
took me.
You got to 15.6.
I know, right? I was a 15.10 pole vaulter. Let me be clear.
15.14.
I was a 16.6 pole vaulter.
Keep raising it. Yep.
If you just talk about nobody here's a pole vaulting expert outside of you and Ryan, so there's going to be.
We always joke about how much faster we've gotten as we've gotten older. The PRs, you just remember them faster.
We definitely get better with age.
Oh yeah,
right.
fine wine, wine.
Yep. 9-hour Ironman, right, Matt? 9 hours.
Oh yeah, 9 hour.
Yeah.
Ironman. 9.
Matt has done a 9:20 or 9:30.
9:55.
Oh, okay.
So 9.
Sorry.
It's what it is. It's a 9.
But a 9. But 9.
This is what happens when I get around Ryan. We start yapping, and we just can't stop talking.
Okay, in your primes, let's say you're both 22 years old, who wins in an arm wrestle?
Oh, Lance for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, dang it. I was hoping I was going to get him on that. Cool.
Ryan is tall and skinny. He's not weak, but he's tall and skinny.
Long levers. So who wins in a being taller contest?
Oh yeah.
Does
dude.
Ryan? Ryan's got him. Okay.
He's 6'3", and I say that I'm 5'10".
Ryan, could you dunk? Could you dunk back in your prime?
Oh yeah, easily.
Easily.
These guys have they all have mad hops.
Oh yeah,
man.
I mean, I
They
would
can
imagine
jump.
high jump. You could probably have done very well as a basketball player.
Yes.
Matt, do you have any questions for Ryan?
I have lots of questions for you, Ryan. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're do you feel like you're on the listener hot seat right now?
A little bit.
Okay, well, this isn't even a question, but some of your rebuttals to our top 10 lists have just been spot on, perfect. So thank you for that. That's not really a question. I would ask you how you come up with it, but I think you just shoot from the hip. They're very, very good. But a real question for you: which part of Lance's body should we wax next? and for new listeners, so I think that Ryan and Lance are part of a fantasy football league.
Ryan is my league commissioner. Actually.
Oh boy,
he's in charge.
Technically, your boss.
We're talking to the right guy now.
And the loser usually has to wax their legs or something like that.
That is correct.
Which that's not a thing for Lance, right? And so I think a chest wax might be more painful.
I think the arms.
Yes,
he's got a lot of thick hair in his arms.
This is a good topic because Lance far too much enjoyed the leg wax the last time.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a punishment. You're like, this is for the loser.
It was it was a good thing for me.
Yeah,
actually.
It was. Yeah, and he's kept it sheer.
I think chest would be. I think chest would be a fair trade as long as it was, the entire chest.
I think maybe butt cheeks or something like that.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
more I was
based
thinking.
on some recent shenanigans of Mr. Lance Hepler, he might need to shave some other regions
Yeah.
that have
I need to trim the edges,
burned our
maybe.
eyes.
Lance, there's this thing. You like new technology. It's called Photoshop.
Yeah, I
yeah.
blew it. I should have photoshopped that picture before I posted it. But I thought it was hilarious the way I posted it, so I just posted it. My wife is like, "Please take the picture down."
I was about to ask if your wife was.
It didn't get flagged inappropriate
it did
anywhere
not.
by any of the
That did not get flagged inappropriate.
It did not.
from Facebook or whoever.
So yeah,
Safe.
It's
Safe.
safe-ish.
That was really walking a fine line.
Hey, Ryan, got a question for you. What's your favorite segment on the show? And do you have a follow-up to that? Do you have a favorite episode that we've done or a topic we've done?
Favorite segment, hands down, is the hot seat. I like a little bit of conflict and a little bit of humor.
Nice. Good recommendation.
And what's that?
Just good recommendation.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think we need to do it, maybe like once a month or something like that. Bring that back. It's a good segment.
Yeah, it's been kind of like on a once a month
cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As far as episodes, it's hard to keep track. They all kind of run together. I probably listen to about 80% of them. I save them up for road trips.
Yeah,
they're excellent on road trips to be able to listen to a conversation. It's always good conversation. I've found the one that comes to mind recently was the one about performance enhancing drugs. That's always been an area of interest, having competed in track and field.
Yeah.
And my views have changed from back in the day to what they are today.
Interesting.
On it, so it was interesting.
How would you say your views have changed, Ryan? Just like a brief. I know that can be a very long answer, but the short version of that.
I was adamantly opposed to any back in the day, but when my vertical jump leap was probably 22 inches, and I competed against guys on my own team who had 40-inch vertical, and it just didn't seem like a fair fight. And why they win the birth lottery, and so I'm a little more forgiving of it, I think. Mm-hmm. And plus I was never tested, so I could do whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
But I always used to think that it was the people that were on the fringes that would be the heaviest users, but my perspective has been that it's the most competitive individuals that are probably going to be the most likely users.
That's a good point.
Gotcha.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. One last question, and then we'll jump into some questions from you. Tell us something about Lance we might not know.
Good.
Oh, Ooh. It's like everything.
No, he knows way too much.
Exactly. This will be an NC-17 version of this. You can share anything.
I don't know. This could get me in trouble.
You in trouble?
Brandy's not listening.
Yes, she probably is.
No, she's not.
All right. So I'll give you the. Oh man, Lance is my best friend, so I'm gonna go easy on him. Actually, I'm not gonna go any hard on him. But what you might not know, Lance always likes to think it's road cycling that got him into bikes, and I think it was the mountain biking. Okay. I think that's where he actually first started to fall in love with bikes. But I think he forgot that when I was listening to the episode. He talked about being a kid riding in Scouts, but the first bike I ever knew him to own was probably on his. It was on his church mission. He got a bike, but when we both got back to our sophomore years, we both bought bikes because we had rented bikes as freshmen to go mountain biking.
That's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, if I want to go fast, I ride my road bike. If I want to get a good workout, I'll ride my road bike. If I want to go have fun, I ride my mountain bike.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, that can be a pretty darn good workout too, honestly. When you're looking at your power development, I know you've talked about some of the power output you have on that mountain bike.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, you got some questions for us?
Oh boy, do I ever!
Oh, here we go. I know he's been
prepared.
So
okay, I got three, and if we might not have time for all three, but I'll go with the one I've been dying to ask. So, especially Evan, who seems to have a revered view of biking history, but it counts for all four of you. Why no love for Greg LeMond?
Oh,
it's
that's
like
a
on your podcast.
Question.
It's like
that is a great question.
The evil wizard who shall not be named.
I've got an answer for that one. I think in a sport like cycling, so it's very much like people throw their support behind individuals versus teams, obviously, like you would in other sports, even though it is a team-based sport. You know, especially as Americans, we really latch on to individual athletes. Greg LeMond, really at the end of the day, now being a guy who won the Tour de France in really amazing fashion, like when he beat Hinault, that's one of.
Yep.
I would say
the last day.
Yeah, I would say arguably, really for most of your Tour de France historians, they would say that was the most impressive tour win, most exciting tour win in the history of the tour. Yeah. I think that's a fair point.
Just to point out, the last day was an individual time trial.
Yep.
And
I forget the amount of seconds. It was
like
seconds.
8 seconds.
Yeah, it was like less than 10
seconds. He won the whole tour
on the Champs-Elysees.
Yeah.
I mean, it does not get more Tour de France than that.
That's pretty amazing.
And an American doing that in France, we should love this guy, right?
Yeah.
but we
Yes.
don't. Why do most people not love Greg LeMond? Here's the bottom line: is I think in his spats with Lance Armstrong over the years, he ended up looking like the guy who was like, I want more attention for my accolades, when Lance really came onto the scene as the American cyclist.
But shouldn't we look back on that and be like, oh, he was right the whole time?
Yes, he was right the whole time.
But I don't believe he didn't dope. I don't believe that.
Really?
That era was rid of drugs. That era was when they were experimenting with PEDs that we can't even like.
This is steroids specifically,
yes, but also amphetamines.
But hang on a sec.
And amphetamines.
Yeah.
Hang on a sec though.
Yeah, go ahead.
When he raced, because here's the thing: I've never been in an actual road bike race in my life, but my dad, who's never owned a bike probably in his life, is the one that got me in the '80s to watch the tour when LeMond was winning, because it was such a great story. He was always never in the front running until they got to the mountains.
Yeah.
So if he's doping, why didn't he excel more in the flats than when he never was in the lead? It was when I got to the Pyrenees or the Alps that he actually took the lead.
He doesn't look like the frame of someone that's hooked up with a lot of steroids.
No. I think in that time period, so you're looking at, there was a lot of steroid use at that time.
Right.
But we're talking about, at that time, it was a lot of the Olympic sports is where the steroid use was huge. In cycling at that time, even if you look at the accusations that have been made of like Miguel Indurain's, runs, you look at guys like that who did excel in the mountains, even as their stronger frames. LeMond doesn't follow that. He is a lean frame. He was always a lean, small frame.
Was a lean frame.
Yeah, was a lean frame. Small frame. Very small, great in the mountains. A rare breed that could time trial at that size as well. But this is the era where amphetamines were huge. I mean, there was literally even a cycling movie. It was a Belgian cycling movie where they make fun of the PED use for amphetamines at that time, when they had a group of guys who used a ton of cocaine before a race, and then they all burnt out at like mile 20. And it's like a comedy cycling movie. And but at that time, it was so rampant. I think at the core, people had a hard time. I think really at everybody's core, when you compare Lance and Greg, you have a hard time believing that LeMond was squeaky clean, beating a guy like Hinault, beating the Badger.
That's true, but I don't think that's. I just don't revere LeMond as much as I do Armstrong.
Yeah.
Even though, and I'm not exactly sure why that is, other than the fact that LeMond came off like this whiny,
yes, you're
irritated, disgruntled former racer.
What do Americans love in an athlete? In ironclad, almost like just win at all costs force, tour de force. What is Lance Armstrong? Pure tour de force.
So hang on a sec.
Yeah,
go ahead, Ryan.
I think Americans love more than that. They love an underdog, and that's why they like Lance in the beginning.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
There was never. I mean, LeMond had to rip his first win from LeMond out of his hands. Like, I mean,
he was battling his team.
His own team.
He was.
Didn't want to let him win, let alone the country of France. I mean, they poured oil on the road on his time trial that the year that I think it was the year he was competing against Hinault for his first win.
And that was, Hinault was a hero at that time, and Hinault is the last Frenchman to win the Tour de France.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I think that particular event, I know that there's been documentaries talking about that, but that would make an amazing actual movie.
Oh, I would love to know
if they actually did something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and there's been a lot of documentaries talking about that. I would love to hear the entire story.
Chasing the Badger, isn't that the name?
Chasing the Badger. It's really good. If people, if our listeners haven't watched that, it's definitely worth. So here's my thought process. I think that is probably the most spectacular victory of all Tour de France's. It's an American. It's an underdog story.
Yeah.
And yes, he does come off a little bit whiny, but he's been right on so many subjects.
Yes, correct.
He's been right on so many subjects.
He has been 100%
we have
right,
he's nailed a whole bunch of people. He said like, this person I think is on drugs, like gone out on a limb, said stuff probably that he shouldn't have. He's been dead right. Then he was like, oh, these bikes might have motors in them. Way before other people were talking about it, they had motors in them.
Yeah.
Like, so he's just been right again and again. I don't think that we've given him enough credit on this podcast, but I'll tell you why I think that everyone kind of overlooks him, especially kind of from an American standpoint. I think it's I just think it's a matter of timing. I think when Lance Armstrong was winning, we had full Tour de France coverage on television.
That's a good
It was
point.
like the Discovery Channel. You could watch.
This is true.
They would play
Media at this point, yep.
the entire tour, and then they would replay it.
Yep.
And so you could basically watch 12 hours of tour every day for 3 weeks.
Yep.
And that was also at a time in, again, I'm aging myself here a little bit, but it's like this was at a time when I was like in college and we were watching this guy just win and win and win. It was just like it was at a time in our personal lives where you kind of have this here. Whereas Greg LeMond really was before my time. In some ways.
Also, you look at American history at that time, right around 9/11. I mean, that was a time where America's patriotism was
at its finest,
at its absolute finest.
Yep.
And I mean, like Lance said perfectly there, an underdog. What better American story to get behind than a guy who literally came back from cancer to win the toughest race in the world?
It's an unbelievable story.
It's a truly unbelievable story. So I think it was. I kind of agree with you, Matt. Maybe it's not as much what LeMond did. It's more the just gravity of what Lance did is so hard to compete with,
So so I think that there's just a couple of different things that kind of add up to a situation where we, the four of us, as we talk about the podcast, totally overlook Greg LeMond, and I don't think we should because I think he's.
That was a great question, Ryan.
It was a great
Ryan,
question.
that's a good one. That was a hot lap question.
Yep. We could do a whole podcast on the subject.
This podcast is turning into the Ryan
It is like
podcast.
Vegas temperature right now. This is turning into the PED podcast.
What else you got, Ryan?
Okay, Evan, what is Lance Armstrong's favorite sport currently?
Currently his favorite sport.
Oh,
doesn't his? Oh, I know his son was a really good football player.
He plays for Rice.
Nope.
Yeah, not his. Okay.
No.
I would say mountain biking because he's been mountain biking with Hincappy lately.
I hope it's not golf.
Don't say golf.
I hope it's not golf.
It's totally golf.
It's golf.
No, God. Oh,
it is golf.
So embarrassing.
Dang it.
I'm
going to need a source for that. I'm going to need you to cite your sources on that.
Yes, here's the source. The source is on, what's this podcast that Joe...
The Move.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's his podcast.
No, not Lance's podcast. The guy who was the MFA announcer. And
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
One of my favorite podcasts, yeah.
Joe Rogan's interview of Lance Armstrong. And he had to leave early because he was going to play like 2 rounds of golf that day.
Oh, God.
But that's like his new favorite. That's where he gets his competition these days. He's playing golf.
Could you imagine playing a round of 18 against Lance Armstrong? He'd rip your head off. Like, that guy would be so overly competitive in a casual Sunday just round of 18.
It's kind of funny, though, if you think about it this way. It's kind of coming full circle for golf because Lance, when he was in his pinnacle, just like what we were talking about, he pulled so many people into the sport of cycling. And cycling actually became, they called it the new golf. That's where business got done. People they were out training, they were out going on bike rides. And a lot of people walked away from the golf course to start taking on cycling. And now we've got the guy that pulled everybody away walking back into the sport of golf. So, yeah, interesting.
I love it.
Very cool. Next one.
All right. This is like my last one. So, when I've given you my top 10 list, it's because you say something on the podcast that I disagree with a lot. So.
We're good at that.
Good.
So, finishing medals. So, I don't know if you guys caught Teddy Bruschi's he finished the Boston Marathon 3 times. And I'm guessing he got a sponsor exemption to do it, but he places his 3 Boston finishing medals as high as his Super Bowl rings.
Teddy Bruschi was a
linebacker for the Patriots.
Linebacker for the Patriots.
Yeah.
And now is ESPN broadcaster still, correct, isn't he?
So you're saying that we don't revere finisher medals as much as we should? Is that what you're saying, Ryan?
Well, I think the way I would say it is that people, if you think of it from a competition standpoint, you guys all are competing. You guys are in good enough shape. You want to compete for the podium, but for some of the rest of us, we realize we're never gonna be on the podium, and we're competing with ourselves. And the medal is telling us, we beat the part of ourselves that said we can never finish the race, and that's why it's such a big deal. And those of us who the goal is just to finish, or to get off the couch and do it.
I've changed my opinion slightly on the finisher medal since that podcast. Actually,
Well, I think if we go back and we listen to the podcast, what we really, because it was a debate of like yes or no, should we, and we debated it. So there's some of us that were like, yes, they're great. Yes, and others, no, they're horrible. Get rid of them. But I think really it comes down to like some finishers medal. When you accomplish something, whether that's a marathon, an Ironman, those finishers medals, they're legit, right? Like, I don't think any of us are going to argue against an Ironman finishers medal.
Oh no, they're nice.
It's the 5K finisher medal, right? Where it's like, and Ryan, I think your point even was like, if someone has conquered their battle to get to that 5K and that medal is good, then awesome, that's great. And the problem is when you have an Evan or whatever it is that can do a 5K, no problem. That's not a tricky. He doesn't need a 5K medal.
No.
And so, giving medals to everyone, I don't know.
I'd rather there be an option. I think we had discussed this. This may be. I wish there was an option for you to say no, I don't want the medal, and then they cycle those medals through different charitable foundations.
Sure.
I know there was a program in Ohio run through Up and Running shoe store. This was years ago. I think they still may do it, but they took people's medals that they gave back and brought them to the Children's Cancer Society, which I thought was a cool program that I think some races should do.
Just out of curiosity, though, what's the kid going to do with a race medal for an event that they have no idea what it is?
But just curious, I think it was like there were people who would volunteer to go and give them to them while they were going through chemo, and
Gotcha.
I think the medal was
representation of them, like
of them getting through chemo. Yeah. Of their fight with chemo, which I think is.
I mean, the other thing you can do, and I've done this, is just not take a medal when they offer them to you at the end of the race, which works really well because a lot of those medals are reused year to year. And then the other thing you can do is if you have a huge stack of them, you can so for Y Racing, like I had like a ton of them.
Could you just give them back to
them
Y?
right back to Y, and then they can use those again. They just change out the ribbons if they're
doing that.
And again, that depends on the race and the race director and all that stuff. But
because
can be reused.
I think I only kept one of my medals from this season actually.
Yeah, and that's what you should do.
I think I did.
Well, I don't know. Those are sometimes I think like Ironman medals.
Yeah,
it's different.
73 is different though. If it's a full iron, keep that medal. I don't care if you finished a second before the cutoff. You keep that medal because that's it.
I have my Ironman medals framed.
Yeah, you should. But I think it's just. I think with the medal discussion, it's at the end goal is going to be different for every person. But I think that you like those you shouldn't collect the medals all the way up. That's a lot of medals to collect if your goal is like
I made a mistake. I gave Evan more coffee when he got here today, and he's just going crazy. He's like,
here.
I'm like 2.5 cups actually into today, and it's noon 30.
So the listener hot lap's supposed to be 3 to 5 minutes. 26 minutes later, Ryan, we really appreciate your time.
It's the Ryan show.
Oh, that's awesome.
Ryan just made the hottest of laps, though. I think.
Yeah, that was excellent. Hey, Ryan, your listener hot lap medal's in the mail. Should see it in a couple days.
All right, I appreciate it. I look forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Hey, man, really appreciate you listening. And you got any parting thoughts for us before we let you go?
Oh no, I have my head's full of bouncing thoughts now. So I don't have anything else.
When are we going to see you in the Pacific Northwest so we can go grab a ride?
Oh, I don't know. Hepler, are we doing the Super Bowl at your place this year? Or?
We might do Super Bowl at my place.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
For the waxing.
Bring all you guys.
for the Super Bowl waxing.
All right, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time, and we'll see you soon, hopefully.
Bye, Ryan.
All right, man. Thanks,
Love
guys.
you, brother.
Bye. I really like doing those. Those are fun. I am going to really employ all of the listeners out there who would like to jump on the show. Give us a ring. You can, I don't know if you necessarily need calls. Just jump on Facebook and direct messages, and we'll set something up, and then we'll get your phone number and give you a call, and we'll chat. It should be a lot of fun.
It's going to be hard to live up to Ryan.
Oh yeah,
he's a good guy, man. He's a good guy.
All right, let's jump into our topic for today. That topic is overtraining.
Oh wait, Ryan just sent me a text.
That was fast.
He said, "Sorry, I choked on one thing about Lance we don't know, but to be fair, I was going to be about trying out for competitive folk dancing."
What?
You tried out for competitive folk dancing?
I don't remember this, but he swears that I tried out for the competitive folk dancing club.
First of all, there's a competitive folk dancing.
Let's move on.
What is competitive folk dancing?
Lance repressed this from his memories.
I repressed it.
Okay. Back to overtraining. Let's go through the definition, symptoms, how to avoid, how to rebound from it, the psychology behind it, the risks, personal experiences that we might have had. You guys want to start? Anybody want to start? Matt, you want to start?
Yeah, I definitely logged quite a bit of miles and things like that back in the day when I used to be a jogger, and it's hard to say. And it's the overtraining bit is a real tricky balance because I think that there's this bit where you want to overload so that you have some adaptation to training loads. So you do want to push it. And it's just a matter of like finding that fine line of when you're kind of overdoing it. And I think when you're, when you've been training for long enough or coaching, you start to see people that are overtraining. And some of the symptoms that you might see might be like interrupted sleep. Might be something that you'll see, if you've got if you've had someone or an athlete or whatever, and they're doing a lot of overtraining. Another thing is just like a weakened immune system. So you might start to see people get colds and things like that.
Yep.
Other things that you might notice if you're overtraining and kind of taking one step too far on mileage or whatever it is, it's just feeling kind of that rundown feeling on every workout, and workouts start to kind of slip away from kind of target goals and things like that.
Definitely lose motivation. I mean, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So
those are things that I've noticed. It's hard to say, I'm having a hard time thinking of specific times when I've like, I definitely was overtraining in this particular point. And I definitely did very high volumes, running and things like that. But I feel like my body handled it very well. The other thing that I would say is just straight up injuries, right? Yep. Where you're just like, you've thrown too much mileage together, or even when you do like too much hard work where it's just like like the workouts themselves are too hard, and you actually just like break something, or Achilles gives out, or whatever it is, those sorts of things. It's not necessarily overtraining at that point because that's just an injury, but I do think that we could kind of at least discuss it as part of one of those things where you've kind of overdone it with your training and it's resulted in an injury itself. So
gotcha. I'm very curious to hear more from you because you've got such a long career of running at high volumes, and then you've transitioned that into the triathlon world and doing Ironman, which is again a lot of high volumes. Plus, you're a coach. You work with a lot of endurance athletes, and I am curious to see what you have to say about that.
I think so. Here's this debate where I run into this all the time, and I have a hard time with this because I'm very opinionated on it, and I do realize like my opinion can be wrong. I see so many people that'll just say this like, you're injured, or even if you're overtrained, it's because you are doing too much. And I don't necessarily think that it's just like this black or white piece where it's like, I can't run over 50 miles, or whatever it is. Like, I just think that it's a lack of adaptation.
Yeah. It's all relative. Yeah.
It's all relative. And, whether, 50 miles might be too much for you right now. But a year from now, 50 miles might be an easy week. Yeah. And it's just one of those things where I think a lot of coaches will just kind of draw a line in the sand and say, this is too much, this is not enough, and really not actually take into consideration the adaptation piece at all, which is crazy, right? They're just like, that's overtraining and that's not overtraining. Whereas you can, like, I've run 160 miles in a week before, which sounds insane, right? That's ridiculous. So it's like 22 miles a day. I felt fine. At the end of the week, I ran a 5K race, ran pretty well considering the mileage I put in. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I don't think I was really overtraining because I think my body was adapted. I had done 150 mile weeks. I'd done some stuff where it's like, I think my body was, I was giving myself enough rest and things like that. And I wasn't, in peak fitness. It was just like a very big base period. I think my body was in a situation where it could handle it. And it did. I think I was fine. I didn't get injured afterwards. I didn't have some of those symptoms that we talked about where I wasn't getting sick or anything like that. I wasn't having bad workouts. Everything was fine. It was just a very large volume of work. And I think my body had adapted to a certain level. And so I would be very cautious of assigning a number to overtraining.
Yeah. What's beautiful about this day and age is we have so many new things at our disposal that we can use to monitor that stuff. Before it was just like throwing somebody in a car that had no gauges and say, just go as fast as you can.
Yeah.
And now we've got gauges and tachometers and all these little fun bells and whistles that we can take a look at and start to look at the metrics of what's going on with our body. And we can start to make changes based on what those metrics are telling us.
Was it last week that we talked about heart rate variability?
Yeah. The Whoop
Was
strap.
it last week?
Yeah, and the Whoop strap and the measurement
perfect,
of that.
Right? I mean, it's really good at doing or handling some of those things where it's not like you can just wake up and feel your heart rate variability.
Yeah.
You can't put, I mean, you can feel if you feel good
Correct.
and you can feel if you feel bad, but you don't know what your heart rate variability is.
And that's one of the things that after listening to Lance talk about that, looking into it a little bit more, I'm like, all right, now I can see the value of that. It might not be the most valuable thing for your day to day, like when you're just going through like your training, like looking at a power meter and just seeing your volumes and all that stuff. But all of a sudden, if you're getting to the end of a block and you're still wanting to push it and you're wanting to be competitive, or like Lance is right now racing all the time, that's going to tell you a lot of what's going on with your body that you don't necessarily see. And you can start to work that into like, all right, I need to take an extra recovery day, or I need to not train on this day. I need to, maybe take the day off. And that really helps you go like dance with that fine line that Matt was talking about, but not go over it.
That's been very prevalent in my mind here lately, because I'm racing 3 days a week.
It's crazy.
And they're 45-minute races at like maximum effort, so it's...
And that's not all you're doing, though. You're still going out and you're still riding. You're still going out and chasing the occasional segment here, and your volume is still...
once this week.
Yeah, your volume's still there, though, so...
But that's the thing. Having the whoop strap and getting a thing is certainly helping. The whoop strap just gives me the number, what my recovery score is for the night. And if I know that the recovery score is good, it's going to be okay. After racing really hard this week, my recovery number...
So this is 3 very hard races.
3 very hard races. And
and your last hard race was Saturday.
Was Saturday. It is now Monday. I woke up with an 86%.
And you took Sunday
score.
off, which you usually do, right?
I did not take yesterday off.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
But my recovery yesterday was even higher.
That's weird.
So I'm adapting to the
workload,
to the doing this 3 times a week. If that makes sense.
and honestly, like 3 workouts a week is good if you can. I mean, I feel like that's a sweet spot.
Well, that's the thing. I'm only racing or recovering.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Are you really taking your recovery days easy, or pretty much?
Tell the truth.
Out of 7 days, there'll be 1 day where I'll put some efforts in.
On your recovery.
On my recovery. So the 7 days in a week, I'm racing 3 of those days.
Is it Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday?
It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday.
Okay.
So Thursday, I'm usually putting in some efforts.
Okay.
And nice and easy on Friday.
And Saturday, you're still focused on your Saturdays. Those are the bigger races.
Those are the bigger races, correct.
And the Tuesday, Wednesdays are more fun.
Correct.
I think we also, we talk about overtraining, and I think this is something that we should definitely mention is like, there's a mental aspect to this. There's a huge mental aspect to this where it's like there are probably like hormones released when you're out there and you rip your pants and you have a funny and you're laughing.
Right, I'm laughing.
You're
right.
laughing at yourself or whatever, and then the next day you go and you race and they're making fun of you and you're still laughing.
I'm still laughing about it.
And you race hard or whatever it is, but I think if you're having fun, I think that can like. It's different than the monotony of doing an indoor workout where you're doing this brutal workout, and that's mentally taxing. So we talk about overtraining, but I don't know, mental taxing stuff I think is definitely something that we should consider, with the whole picture of overtraining, not just the physical side of it. Right. Because if you go have fun, a couple workouts, like you probably feel okay on Thursday, or maybe you're sore or whatever, but it's not like you don't want to bike.
No, that's correct.
I personally, I don't have a problem with you racing 3 days a week.
No.
And I think that's great, and it's great fitness. It's just what you do on those other days that's going to make all the difference in the world. If you're going to go out and you're going to add like a tempo ride in, or you're going to start doing some threshold rides, and then you're going to have a big, giant voluminous ride, and then maybe you take 1 day off the bike, I think that you start getting to a situation where you're digging yourself into a hole, and pretty soon you're not going to be able to get out of that because you're going to go over.
You should probably train with me on your off days.
Well, I've been riding with my wife. I shouldn't say that, but it's been great.
I think it's perfect.
I'm spending time with her. We're seeing cool stuff.
Yep.
And it's
very mellow.
It's mellow for me.
Yeah. I don't think she would have any problem with that.
Yeah. Another thing too, this isn't something that happens over the course of a week. It's not something that happens even over the course of like a training block. It's when you go for long stretches of time. And again, like Matt said, it's subjective to the person, because if we're talking about somebody that's coming fresh into training for a sport, and all of a sudden they go nuts for like 2 or 3 weeks, that person's going to see problems pretty soon, and they're going to have to push pause. Whereas like Matt or Lance, if they really go hard at it for 5 or 6 weeks, they're still going to be fine. It's whether or not.
Well, let's not rope me in with Lance. If I raced 3 times on the bike like Lance is doing, I would be shot.
But see, like right now, I'm only doing like 11 or 12 hours total for the whole week.
Right, because your race days are short.
Right, and the whole summer I was doing like 18 or 20 hours a week. Yeah. So my whole volume is down, but it's
tapered down for racing. Yeah. So you're doing it right. I don't have a qualm with you.
It's total luck right now. We'll see in like 3 more weeks if I just blow to pieces.
There are a couple different symptoms that you want to look at. And I was reading an article that Evan shared with us, and the symptoms can kind of bounce around and be different based on whether or not it's aerobic or anaerobic.
Interesting.
Have you experienced any of the aerobic stuff, like I guess we'll call it the insomnia, the irritability, the agitation, the tachycardia, which is kind of like a high heart rate that you can't get to come down, and then the hypertension and restlessness? Is that something you've ever experienced?
It's hard to know like what is to blame when you don't sleep, right?
True.
So sometimes you can kind of put a finger on it where it's like, I had caffeine, it's stuff like that. It's like, oh, that's what the cause of this. It's so hard to be like, it's because I'm overtraining. So I definitely have tons of nights where I have not slept well.
Yeah. Back to the caffeine thing. I don't think I've personally ever dealt with overtraining. I've probably tiptoed into it a few times, but I definitely have dealt with the fatigue. And generally throughout the course of the day, I'm perfectly guilty of using caffeine as a crutch to get through my day. Because I'm fatigued from my workouts, and that will inadvertently affect my sleep. So that's something you kind of have to be careful with, because if you're not getting that quality sleep,
then
it's just a downward spiral.
Worse. Yeah.
So
that's where your body recovers the most, is during deep sleep cycles and REM sleep cycles. Yeah, and it's hard.
And that's what really sucked for me last year when I was dealing with the recovery process. I was not sleeping. I was getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep, and it was all broken, where I would sleep for maybe an hour and a half or 2, and then I'd be up for anywhere from a half an hour to an hour and a half trying to get rid of pain or trying to find a comfortable position or just dealing with something. And that was really hard. And I think that actually extended my recovery process.
No doubt.
It sucked.
That's one thing where having the Whoop strap helps. It is I know what my resting heart rate is.
Yep.
So and when that's another sign or a symptom is if your resting heart rate is rising, it can be a sign of overtraining or overdoing it.
Yeah.
Spike in the resting heart rate. Yeah.
You don't need the Whoop strap to take your resting heart rate. You just want to take it first thing in the morning, kind of before you get up and move around, which is kind of hard to do.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm looking at my notes incorrectly. Those symptoms that I put out there, those were the anaerobic ones. So that's probably where Matt was looking at me like, I haven't experienced any of that.
Well,
so the aerobic ones were more geared towards fatigue, depression, bradycardia, which is the slow heart rate, and then loss of motivation. So those all make sense from an aerobic. So when you're putting in your 20 plus hours of running a week and doing 160 miles, if you try to do that for a prolonged period of time, you're probably going to have some of those symptoms, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so long ago, and I also think when you're more youthful, you just don't have the broken sleep as much as you do when you're older. I don't know.
True.
Maybe that's just my experience. But let's see what our text message says. What do they say about this? What do they say about recovery? So no, I just think
they said never mind. Looked at the wrong options.
Yeah,
that's what it says.
Absolutely. So I think it's when I was doing that much mileage, I felt tired because I was running a lot.
Yep.
I always felt like it was okay to be tired a little. Like you want to go to bed at night. That's good. That's okay. Your legs are tired. You want to sit down. That's okay.
But like in college, you were like directed what to do. Your coaches were kind of.
They were. They
tried to be on top of that.
Yes, but they didn't really suggest weekly mileage for us. And so a lot of it was like, we're going to do these workouts on these days. And I think that's kind of the right way to do it in some ways, because you're handling a whole bunch of people, for one, and so keeping track of weekly mileage is very difficult. With technology today, it's something that coaches could probably do a lot better, and I'm sure a lot of coaches do. But back then, it was like, we're morning runs, you're on your own, right? And so there was these ways to kind of get your mileage up. So whereas the majority of the team might run 70, the majority of the team might run 70, 80 miles a week, and I'd do 100. And so the other piece of the puzzle is your long run, which, I thought was, I still do really think it's like one of those kind of runs that's completely overlooked by a lot of coaches as not being that important, when it's probably one of the most important runs, especially in youth people that, and same thing for cycling. A lot of this is it's very important to develop your aerobic capacity. And we don't think of it as much because our aerobic capacities are pretty much fully developed. Like we can do some long rides. And a lot of youth cyclists or youth runners or whatever, like that's the real struggle, is being able to go that long. There's plenty of speed, a lot of get up and go, but not able to hold it as long as they potentially need to be able to hold it when they're talking about racing, especially cycling. So,
gotcha. With respect to building training programs for folks, a lot of people like to jump in and think more is better, and for me, I don't like seeing people do that. They'll hit it too hard too fast and they'll become discouraged with the sport. I really tell people whenever they ask me for advice, or if I'm coaching somebody, it's slow, steady growth over the course of time. And that time can be over years, not just the time period of maybe just a couple months or like a quarter or a half a year. It's years of development. And it's something that if you do it right, you're going to have much better results in the long run than if you try and get too much too fast, because A, you'll get burned out. B, you could get hurt, or C, you could get into the situation where it's tough to dig out of it, because you pretty much to get out of that overtrained, that overreached, whatever, you've got to stop, and you just have to basically hit the reset button, let everything kind of come back to ground zero, and then
that might take
forward.
A month or two or three to dig yourself out of an overtraining hole. That's true.
And hopefully you don't have an injury that you're going to try and have to rehab from as well. So I just take your time. On that note, let's talk about some of the other little tips or tricks that we can give people, or suggestions for digging themselves out of a situation where they're overtrained, or at least flirting with that and starting to feel some of the symptoms. Do you guys have any feedback for them on that?
Well, when you're in the thick of it, and I deal with a lot of athletes, when you're in the thick of it, taking a day off sounds ludicrous. It does. It sounds, and a lot of us sitting around, are like, haha, it's funny. But then, or probably a lot of listeners are like, yeah, a day off, and take a day off all the time, so no big deal. But when you're really in the mix, a day off just sounds like that is the craziest idea. I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. And I definitely was there for sure. When you're, older and you're taking a step back and you're actually coaching athletes and stuff, and you're looking at it, you can see a day off. Guess what? 3 days off doesn't matter. You're probably going to race very, within a second or something like that of how you would have raced otherwise. You might race better. You might race slightly worse, but it's not going to be very much difference at all. And if you're flirting with overtraining, where you can really hurt yourself, or the consequences are pretty severe, then a couple of days off can be super beneficial. And so just kind of getting that perspective, a couple steps back and looking at a day off is not that big of a deal, I think is helpful in some ways. And not to downplay the fact that, these people that are also not willing to take days off, they also do very well because they're not willing to take days off, and you get a lot of a training effect just by that kind of sheer volume that they're doing. And so I don't want to belittle that at all. But if you could have some sort of combination of the two, the will to drive to have that higher volume and grow that over, a long period of time, with the willingness to be able to take, the occasional day off when needed. That's the sweet spot. That's the magic sauce, but I don't know, exactly how to make that happen, because it's very easy for athletes like this to get obsessed with the details and not take that day off.
Right.
So.
That leads me to something else, and I've been a huge advocate, and I'll still tell you all to the end of the days of me riding. I love Strava. I think that it's a great thing for cycling. However, it does have its pitfalls. I think that people get too tied up in the notion that they think everybody's actually watching them. And they think that everybody cares about whether or not they're going out and doing this training ride, or whether or not they're getting a KOM, or looking at their average speed. They start to think that everybody is putting them under a microscope, so they have to go out there and perform. And taking a day off, heaven forbid, that could be the end of time in their head. So from a psychological standpoint, I think that people need to be very careful with that. I think that we need to remind people that, hey, people are supporting you on there, and maybe they do see the rides that you post, but they don't really care whether or not you
Right.
take a day off or whether or not you rode, 16 miles an hour that day was your average speed,
Right.
or if it was 21.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's one of those things where you're just mentioning this in passing, but like easy days can be easy.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I think a lot of people see my really, really slow runs and they're like, I could run with him or whatever. It's like, you can't race with me or whatever.
Right.
But that's okay. Like, it's not like, whatever, but like then I'll go 12-minute miles on some difficult trails, whatever it is. And so it's like, these easy days are okay to do easy.
Yeah.
And don't let Strava break you of, being a better athlete just
Yeah.
because you're not willing to have a slow, miles per hour day.
Yeah. Celebrate those.
Yeah.
Make a big deal about it. Take some pictures, post them up, and make sure that you don't overdo it.
And I thought your point of like people aren't watching that close is pretty spot on too, because
that's true.
I think what's cool is like you scroll Strava. If something is interesting, if Lance isn't wearing his pants on one of his rides, you're going to give that you give it the kudos and you move on. I don't know how many miles per hour you were going on that ride. You didn't have pants on, and that's funny. So I'm going to give that a thumbs up.
That gets a thumbs up.
That's going to get a thumbs up.
And if you do find yourself, or if you've been there before where you've overtrained, some of the things that I was reading online, and I would tend to agree with this, is start to take a look at the things that are affecting you from a social perspective. Like if you're moody, if you're always fatigued and tired, and you just have this general I can't even think about bikes, or you're just you're not in your right mindset. Don't take a look at necessarily what your heart rate monitor is telling you, whatnot, but stop the activity, whether it be running, riding, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just put that aside and then go just enjoy life and wait for those things to subside and go away. And I think once those things start to go away and you're like, oh, you know what? I kind of feel like going for a ride today. I feel kind of good. I'm not feeling tired. All of those are pretty much in the rearview mirror. Then you can start tiptoeing back into it. Don't go full bore right back into it so you find yourself there again, but use that as one of your litmus tests for whether or not you think that you're ready to get back into the activity.
On the same note, you should find something that is soothing or a stress reliever,
Sure.
or something like yoga or meditation or stretching or good music or
Sure.
things like that, which
Sure.
can just help improve your mood and whatnot. So getting massages.
Yeah. And then if you do get back into that activity and you are still noticing that you're having issues with your heart rate, maybe you're putting in an effort and you just can't get your heart rate up. I don't know if you guys ever felt that notion before. You're just you're trying and you're doing the effort and you're just I'm fatigued and I can't get my heart rate up. I can't push my legs any harder to make my heart rate come up. You're probably still fatigued, and use that as your next benchmark of testing to see whether or not you're ready to get back into the sport. And if you're having that normal physiological response of you go and you push and you can do an interval and your heart rate comes up, and then you stop said interval and then it comes right back down into your normal zone, okay, the motor's working again and it's working the way that it should be. But if you're having a hard time, if you're hitting the accelerator and the motor just will not rev up, it's probably time to get off the bike again and give it some more time. That's going to be important, I think, for everybody to understand. So anything else that you guys want to add on the subject? We could go on. I've got notes for days, and we went a little long on some other things, but maybe we can put a little bit more of this into another segment.
Yeah, we should definitely circle back on this issue.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will, because we talk about all this kind of stuff all the time. But yeah, it's definitely a good subject for sure.
So at the end of the day, the parting note is just be honest with yourself and take an honest look. And then for sake of just making sure if you're not able to do that, have somebody work with you, your peers, your coach, or people that you respect, and just communicate with them, and hopefully they'll give you some honest feedback so that you can make the right steps, because we don't want to see anybody get hurt or turned off to a particular sport, and we want to see you be successful.
Yeah.
So, all right, let us jump into one last thing. Matt, you want to go first today?
Sure.
All right.
Let me think. I posted a video last week, and it was just 100 videos, whatever it was.
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of
congratulations on that.
100, yeah,
100
getting there.
videos.
I know, it's cool. I'm kind of excited in some ways, and but there's enough material on the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/mlegrand if you guys want to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of cycling stuff. There's, some swimming, not that much running, surprisingly. But, there's getting to be enough material now that people can kind of hop in there and kind of
find what
just
you want.
dig into what they want. Yeah, specifically, which is cool. I think I'm going to post a video this week talking about if you had an unlimited budget, what gear, what triathlon gear would you pick? which I think is kind of a fun discussion, because you kind of get into some stuff where it's like, even if I had a ridiculous amount of money, would you buy that Wahoo kicker bike? Meh, I don't know. It's
Right.
like no, I kind of want to be on my bike when I'm doing indoor sessions or whatever. So we should totally do something like that on the podcast, where it's just like just cycling, right? It's just, although this could be a triathlon podcast, but just cycling. Like what would you spend money on given an endless bucket of money? Like what would you buy?
It can get pretty nuts pretty fast.
Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Right. Like, what's the spare bike would you have? And there's just so many more things that you could do. But I think it would be an interesting discussion, because sometimes even though something's twice the price, it's still not as good as the the other item.
Right.
And so some little things like that that I think, if we're discussing stuff, would be interesting for people to listen to. But that video, I hope, will come out on Wednesday or Thursday-ish, along with this podcast. So check it out.
Very cool.
One last long thing.
Lance, one last thing from you.
My races this week will be in the muddy, sloppy rain, most likely.
Pick certain tire.
Our weather has changed a bit. So, and I traditionally don't do as well in wet, muddier races. So we'll have to see what happens this week.
Keep your clothes on, buddy.
Yeah, I can't promise that.
If you've noticed, Evan's voice disappeared from the podcast.
We lost Evan.
Yeah, we lost Evan. I think he's in the bushes doing something. I don't know. We're outside.
He's in the woods.
What you doing out there, Evan?
He got called away.
Hey, Smokey. My one last thing. Nicrasi's this weekend, so I'm going to come out and watch that and see you guys all out there racing. If it's hopefully not raining too hard, I'll take some pictures of you. Cheer everybody on, and everybody from our team. That would be fun to see a bunch of orange out there. That's almost in our backyard.
Yes, it is in Washougal.
Yeah. Washougal, Washington. So for the motocrossers out there that have heard of the nationals, the motocross championships out at Washougal Motocross, that's where this race will be. So
at the racetrack.
Yeah, should be fun. Yep. And then I just wanted to congratulate my wife, who did the bike leg of a half Ironman this weekend and logged her longest bike ride of her life.
Oh, fantastic!
56 miles. Just jumping back into my Backpedal. That's she rode more on her bike outdoor in that one day than I did all week. Yeah, I didn't ride outside once last week, so. Yeah, it's kind of a sad state of affairs when your wife's putting in more miles on the bike outside than you are. So, and she actually beat me on the Saturday too. I think I rode on the trainer and did like 30-something miles, and she did 56. So,
man,
woe was me. All right, anything else, guys?
I think that's it.
Yeah, awesome. Good luck.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everybody out there listening, we really greatly appreciate it. Hit us up on Facebook at Dial Podcast, and check us out on Instagram. We do post some pictures up there from time to time.
Don't look at my pictures.
Don't look directly at Lance's picture.
We appreciate you listening. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.